Yo, what is going on, everyone? Mashman here. Hope you are having a tremendous day today. I wanted to record this video, which is almost kind of veering into the realm of training and something I would talk to a client about whenever they come to me to work with building out their personal brand through my firm. But I was listening to a podcast earlier, and this is kind of what inspired or led me to recording this. And I want to preface this by saying I don't typically listen or study other professionals that are in the personal branding space or in the public relations space. Now, might I turn on a lecture or a video discussing, let's say, Edward Bernays or some of the historical public relations campaigns, or I might listen to Tom Peters on an interview, things of that nature. But I'm not somebody who wants to go and digest and listen to what everybody else is talking about, because I feel like that negatively influences and impacts my own system of beliefs. Now, if somebody brings up an alternative viewpoint and something that is worth evaluating, then I'm 100% for it. But I don't want to be constantly thinking, is what I'm teaching consistent with what everybody else is teaching? No, I developed my philosophy of personal branding, which I include in my book. And I didn't develop that off of the backs of other people and off of everybody else's beliefs. Yes, I took inspiration from people, but when it comes to my philosophy about personal branding, one of the major differences between me and what we believe at my firm and the people close to me that get trained and consulted by me, we believe that personal branding is something that has been around since the beginning of mankind, pretty much. The moment that Adam and Eve were created, they had a personal brand. I mean, think about how the story of Genesis starts out. Whenever Adam and Eve are created, it starts with two people. And from there, those actions of those two individuals influence all of mankind. We can think about the historical examples, so on and so forth. Whereas a lot of people today believe that personal brands, and in order to have a personal brand, you have to basically be online, you have to be on social media. Now, these are all aspects of your personal brand. They're quite important as well, but they are not your personal brand. You are your personal brand. Your reputation is a part of it. What people know you as is a part of it. Your social media presence is a part of it. What pops up on Google is a part of it, etc. Now, what I was listening to earlier, it was a TED Business episode on, podcast or whatever, and it was only about 12 minutes long. There was a 3-minute ad and only about 6 minutes of conversation, so I'm not going to be tuning back into the show. Not here to complain. But the speaker was talking about how whenever you're determining, and he said some really valid points, he said some really amazing things, such as understanding your intent, understanding your goal, right? And that's similar to what we teach. We want you to understand some of the biggest questions of what are you looking to get from your personal brand? Who do you want to be known as? And then how do you get there? As well as understanding, what personal branding is, which I just covered. And so he mentioned those same exact things in his own terminologies, but he mentioned one of the tips in order to build out your personal brand online is to focus on one social media platform and to find where your target audience is and only be on that platform. And he said it not in such a way to where he was saying focus on one platform. He said basically only be on one platform. And that is a recipe for disaster. And I want to share 3 really quick reasons why you need to be diversifying your social media presence, your profiles, and all of the above. Now, number 1, the first reason is security. A couple of years ago, TikTok was under a lot of fire by the American government about security concerns, and there were talks about even banning the entire platform. And there were so many people, and I knew many of these people, who have built massive followings. I mean, millions and millions of people that they mainly only built their platform on TikTok. They didn't really veer into Instagram. They weren't focused on YouTube at the time. They weren't focused on, creating content in those manners or launching podcasts and other aspects of media. They were just known for their TikTok videos. And that was very problematic, and it sent a shockwave through that community because many people were thinking, whoa, my God, what if it disappears? What if they delete it? Overnight, their credibility, their trust, their following would have literally disappeared. Now, it's unlikely for a platform such as LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat to just disappear overnight. It's unlikely, but not impossible. And the reason I say it's not impossible, well, obviously, a company could be stressing from inside. There could be internal issues with generating revenue. There could be security risks like being hacked. And this is talking about an entire platform being deleted or going down or offline or shutting off. But I'm not even talking about how your individual profile could be hacked. Your individual profile could be deleted. It could be suspended for something you say. I mean, this is 2024. And so by only focusing on one social media platform, you are putting yourself at a security risk, and your personal brand is much more likely to be seriously impacted versus if you are on multiple platforms. And this is why I always say that you need to not only be on Instagram, you need to be on Facebook, you need to be on LinkedIn, you need to be on Twitter, you need to be on all these different places. And a couple years ago, during my first ever speech, it was in Bakersfield, California. It was called We All Thrive in the 661, and I have the video actually way back on my YouTube channel. You can find it. I talk about, and this was when I was managing a rapper, how I got this rapper on LinkedIn. And I mentioned at the time, I was thinking, why are you going to get a rapper on LinkedIn? It might sound goofy. But guess what? In 2024, Snoop Dogg is on LinkedIn. He has transferred over and is building his following, and Snoop Dogg is primarily known for rapping. And so if you think about that diversification, it leads to security, to where even if one platform disappeared tomorrow, yeah, it would hurt, but you still have other places that you have an audience built up on. Now, the second reason is reach. Now, if you are only focusing, let's say, on Instagram, and the example he gave was the artist. If you're an artist, you're going to share your artwork, you can be on Instagram, you could promote the content, etc. But that means that you are only pushing your content to one algorithm. One algorithm is working for you versus imagine you take that same short video, that same piece of work, and you post it on Facebook as a native reel. You post it on YouTube as a short. You post it on LinkedIn or TikTok. Those are 4 different places, as well as Instagram. Now you have 5 algorithms promoting your content to potentially billions of people. There are 4 billion people on the internet that are now potentially seeing what you have to offer. If you only limited yourself to Instagram, that means one algorithm is only pushing your content and you're relying on them. You're not taking more control. And this is really ultimately, I suppose, what I'm talking about. You're gaining more control from these platforms, more control of your personal brand, more control of your reach, to where you're not reliant on one of these media giants. Now, there are also, I feel like I do need to address this before I get into the final reason, but there are so many platforms that I basically break down social media platforms into 2 categories. You have the major platforms and you have the minor platforms. Now, I'm not talking about the startups that have 100 users. I'm talking, you have the majors, which are Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, etc. And then you have the minor platforms, which you could argue some of these that I'm going to mention would be, quote, major, but you have Quora, you have Reddit, you have Tumblr. But then if you're building out your personal brand, you might not be on those minor platforms. I myself, I am. I have pages everywhere. I secured my handle everywhere. That helps lead to an omnipresent personal brand, and I encourage you to at least secure your handle on these platforms. That doesn't mean you necessarily need to build, but you do need to be focusing on building on the major platforms. And the beautiful thing is you're able to cross-promote your audience from one place to the other place, from one platform to the second platform. So let's say you have a gigantic following on Instagram, you're able to say, hey, go ahead and follow me on TikTok, or vice versa. Hey, go ahead and subscribe to my profile on Snapchat. I'll be pushing some exclusive content there. Or hey, go connect with me on LinkedIn if you're focusing more on a business aspect and you want to nurture some of those relationships. Which leads me into the third and final point, trust. You are building trust by being on multiple platforms. Now let me ask you a question. I already know what I believe about this, but what about you? If you saw somebody who had 100,000 followers on Instagram and only one page, only on Instagram, you couldn't find him on Twitter or TikTok or Facebook or LinkedIn. He only was on Instagram and had 100,000 followers versus the second person who is not only on Instagram, and they might have 50,000 followers on Instagram, 20,000 on TikTok, 10,000 on Twitter, 5,000 on Facebook, 20,000 connections on LinkedIn. Which person would you trust the most? I personally would trust the person who has the omnipresent personal brand, because it shows, number one, that he did not just fake his following, which you can do on Instagram. You actually had to do something. So with that assumption, you would say, oh, he not only faked his following on Instagram, now he also faked it on all of these other platforms, which is more unlikely. Not impossible, but unlikely. It would also show me that he's dedicated himself or herself to building out a strong presence online. That means that he or she is doing something worth following, and that people from one place are going over to follow on another place. And that's how you build out that cult-like following and those people that are really engaged with you. So the next time you hear somebody say, you need to only be on one social media platform, you need to say no, because I'm leaving a lot of money, a lot of opportunity, a lot of reach, a lot of connection on the table by doing that. I want to make sure that I get it all. You need to be able to get pushed on multiple algorithms. You need to be able to have security for your house and for your personal brand. You also need to be able to build trust. And you're able to promote so many amazing things on so many different platforms. And each platform also has pros and cons. They have different algorithms. They have different features. You're able to write articles on LinkedIn and now Twitter or X, but you're not able to do articles on Instagram or Facebook. So each platform has a different algorithm. They have different features. They have different benefits. And I could go on, but let me go ahead and stop here. And these are 3 of the reasons why you need to be on multiple social media platforms: security, reach, and trust. I'm curious to know your thoughts. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like button if you want to get more content about personal branding, my own life, doing a lot of vlogs later this year as well, touring some of my properties, and also just following along with my life as I'm building out my public relations firm and my other ventures. I'm Isaac Mashman. Happy and grateful for you. Make sure your coffee's strong, and much love.